Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, good evening, and a very warm welcome on behalf of ICMA Pakistan and ACCA Pakistan. My name is Hassan Ashraf. I am a fellow member of ACCA and working as senior manager in the education department at ACCA Pakistan. It is very pleasing moment for me to share with you that on 10th of March, early this year, when we talked about a very unique word, globalization, uh, we had this conviction in our mind that we will continue to repeat the flavor through different activities, going forward. And this is what today's activity is also going to do. But before I begin the formal proceedings of the today's session, I would request each one of you if you could type yes in the question panel and do let me know that you can hear me loud and clear and you can view the screen as well. So thank you so much. Yes has started to pour in. Thank you very much. I will request everyone to sort of give me a heads up if they can see the screen all right and listen to me. All right, that's great. So all yes so far. Thank you very much for this confirmation. So as I was sharing with you that the whole concept or one of the concept behind this partnership or the continuity of this partnership was to make sure that in each activity that we will perform, we will try to bring in the global perspective and we will also bring in the local perspective as well. And today's webinar is also going to be about that. It is on a very important topic, and this is first one in the series of session that ICMA Pakistan and ACCA Pakistan will continue to plan together for its members, for its employers, for public sector, public practice companies, in the interest of strengthening the quality of public practice domain and also in the interest of strengthening the profession with specific emphasis on ethics and transparency, which you all know is the talk of the town or talk of the world at the moment, to put it better. Now, without any further ado, I would request Market Head Business Development, Mr. Asad Hamid Khan, to present his welcome remarks to all of the distinguished members of both accounting body and to other prestigious guests who are joining us today. Thank you, Asad, for your time, and over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Hassan. I'd also like to welcome our other esteemed panelists and experts today, Mr. Shahzad Ahmed Awan and Mr. Antonis Dialis. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly, Antonis. It's a very interesting session. Reinvention, we are talking about internal controls, we are talking about the digital age. Over the last 30, 40 years, when we look back, there has been a huge agility in terms of how transformation, how change, how new technologies are taking their place, not just within our normal daily lives, but within the corporate sector, within the workplace, within the business models that we work. So today's session is very apt. Before I talk about it, and I'll be talking very briefly around the need and the importance of ethics and transparency. Before that, I would really like to uh, thank Institute of Cost and Management Accountants of Pakistan in terms of joining hands with the ACCA, and it has been a fantastic journey as Hassan has just taken up. So among the many areas of collaboration, thought leadership, professional development is part of that endeavor that we as a community of professional accountants, the people that the society, the community trusts in terms of how we can help in terms of creating and enabling transparency, not just within the corporate sector at large, in specific, but to the society at large. And there's a very wide connotation in today's term. We talk about the political will, the emphasis of all agendas on enabling the public sector, both in terms of services, both in terms of systems, both in terms of controls, both in terms of effective public financial management. Then we talk about and we see how the startup ecosystem has really developed globally, and it has started picking up here in Pakistan. We have got the regulatory sandbox regulations issued by the Securities and Exchange Commission. We talk about the new business models unheard of 5 years back, the likes of Uber, the likes of Careem, Amazon being the single largest beneficiary of how the COVID disruption helped amplify or endorse their business model, and how for us as professional accountants or people that are working for these organizations, the 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 processes, the way we have originally created that internal assurance, not just for the employees, not just for the stakeholders, that includes sponsors, creditors, but also for the public at large, that these organizations are operating with a very clear focus on public trust. So the way the entire uh, ecosystem is shaping. I think COVID, with all its challenges, with all its disruption, has given us an opportunity to rethink the way we used to operate as businesses, and also that has helped us within the professional accounting profession to see how we can further strengthen, modify, and evolve the entire practices, the standards that have been in place, the way the control environment is looked at within the organization. There is a very strong focus in terms of remote operations for till the time we had the physical lockdowns. A majority, all the organizations, irrespective of their size, were compelled to leverage technology, to leverage at the new digital channel in terms of their business continuity, in terms of their service to customers, in terms of their internal operations, in terms of their financial viability and sustainability, in terms of their connectivity. So all this uh, has been accelerated in my view. So we've always talked about how the business models are evolving, how the businesses and the workplaces would evolve, and how that impacts on us as individuals, irrespective of which professional skill or discipline we bring to the organization. So, speaking specifically in terms of the way ACC has contributed to this domain, a few years back we did a fantastic research called the Professional Accountants of the Future. We identified 7 professional quotients. So, digital, creative, and vision quotient were a very clear skill set that was thought to benefit not just the professional accounting fraternity, but any profession going forward. Most recently, we have talked about the careers in terms of how they evolve over the next 20, over the next 10 years, and how that shapes the way the profession is looked at, our contribution is looked at within the organization, whether the controls or the new ways of business models require a rethinking of how the new ethical dilemmas take uh, arise, how they are, how awareness is created around that. And last but not the least, uh, I would encourage all our esteemed audience to really make it a very interactive session and really take benefit of the conversations that we're having, and and be as question oriented as you can be. So wish you and all the worthy panelists a fantastic session ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Asad, for such a comprehensive reflection to begin with, and completely agreed. Digital technologies are transforming traditional industries and business model, and so is the need for the new internal controls, a new model to manage the risk is ever more important. Um, Before I move on to the two very important and special speakers and their introductions, I would like to share with all of you that we have uploaded the complete report on this topic, reinventing internal controls in the digital age. Along with the complete report, there is a key highlights, 2 page to 2 to 4 page summary as well. So you all are encouraged to download this from the resource section of this GoToWebinar platform that is opened in front of you at the moment, and do go through the contents of these reports once you attend this session. Now, without any further ado, I am very happy to share with you that the first speaker I'm going to hand over to is Mr. Antonis Dialos, and he is head of audit and assurance at the Professional Insights team in UK. He's been the author of a lot of research reports that ACCA continues to develop. Uh, so overall, his lead on the ACCS policies on audit and assurance. He contributes to Professional Insight publication and responds to consultations as well. He is also, a member of the UK Financial Reporting Council, also on different committees of IAASB and Accountancy Europe. He's a technical advisor on both IASSB and IFAC SMP Advisory Group, and a member of the Audit and Assurance Policy Group at the Accountancy Europe. Before joining ACCA, Antonis worked as an auditor for EY in London and the Channel Islands. Specializing in financial services, he has also worked at KPMG in Cyprus, where he qualified as an ACCA member. So a very diverse and very comprehensive profile that we have tried to bring to this particular session. And definitely you are going to hear a truly global perspective on the topic from Mr. Antonis. So without any further ado, Antonis, if I may hand it over to you for the next reflection on the topic. Thank you.
Many thanks, and many thanks for the warm welcome and the warm introduction. I'm very pleased to be with you. The pleasure is all mine, and I hope that I will try and add some international flavor in coming from a more local report, but it really becomes global in the way that things operate now. Just before I start, just to mention that you can access all professional insights reports. The easiest way to do that is through the ACCA Insights app, which is available for free for Android and iOS devices. Is the easiest way to access reports. And also through the website of the on the ACCA global website, there is a tab, Professional Insights, and then you can filter it with the discipline that you are more interested in. As I go along, I might refer to some of those reports that might be of interest, which are global reports, which touch a few of these areas that we are going to talk about today. You might see me looking on the other side. It's just because of the screen, so don't. That's the reason I'm looking on the other side as well. So without any further delay, let's move on to the first slide to see what we're going to cover today. Next slide, please. So today we're going to talk about the report Reinventing Internal Controls in the Digital Age. I will mention a few things about the research methodology that we followed, then mention a few things about the technologies that are actually relevant here, and some of the risks. And the report does make a lot of reference to the stakeholder impact. For this particular session, because of time, I will focus a little bit on internal and external audit. Hopefully, I'll bring my expertise in this and conclude with some key messages coming from this research. The next slide, please. So starting with the methodology of these reports, so we had a roundtable. So this report origins from Singapore, so that's why I mentioned a national report does become international now. And that was a roundtable where we had CFOs, auditors, audit committee members, and other relevant stakeholders that have inputted to this discussion. The second bit of the methodology was we roll out a survey on this report. And I had to note from the beginning, for this report, we collaborated with PwC and INSAT, the Emerging Market Institute. So it was a collaborative research, and PwC have run a survey that was running for the last couple of years. So with that, we top that up with desktop research on the subject matter. And before concluding to this report, just to note that all the people that were involved are referenced within the report. And if you look at the section on resources and download this report, you'll find out who were involved in this research. We should move to the next slide, please. So I think we should start with the technologies that are involved, that are evolving now, the internal controls as we know them, and in general, the profession as we know it. So we know that companies do have in place internal controls to safeguard their assets, to prevent fraud, to verify financial records, etc. So what does that mean in the digital age? In this age that we live in now, these technologies are transforming the way that these things work. What does that mean, though, for the professionals? Do they need to be equipped with that? What does that mean for the businesses? Because traditionally, we were hearing, for example, a small business. Traditionally, they had a simpler model, a business model. Now we can see that this is shifting towards a more complex, technologically complex model, even in startups. So let's see which are those technologies that I'm talking about. Starting with cloud computing, as you can see on the screen. This, by the way, this report was launched in 2019 and the research started within 18. So you can understand that the way that technology moves, things move very, very fast. So although it was an emerging technology, I'm sure you will agree that this is no longer an emerging, it's already here. And based on some stats, this is it has become a really pervasive technology globally, and now the cloud providers have quite a bit of a high standards of controls that are passing through to their customers. For example, control certifications and attestations about the technology and the control environment. Maybe an example to use there is the Amazon Web Services. We all, most of us, interact with that. So we engage with Amazon. So they are providing the security for the cloud, and the customer deals with the security in the cloud. So so with that, a hybrid, this is like a hybrid cloud technology that derives. So what does that mean? It means that although that the security could be covered from the side of, let's say, the likes of Amazon in this case, the businesses or customer has the risk what's going on the cloud. And that is an important aspect that needs to be considered. And also there are a number of rules that are there now for data protection, especially coming from GDPR in Europe, or similar protection regulations in other jurisdictions. Now, the second technology is drone technology. Now, this is a really interesting one. From the, if I can share a few insights from the external audit point of view here, and then I'll relate it to the controls, of course. In external audit, we see that happening now in particular industries when they're dealing with stock takes observations. So what happens is that when you have a client operating in an industry where it's hard to access their warehouses, or for example, let's think about the oil and gas, you need to with the drone technology, they can access areas where it's much more costly and resource driven in a much cheaper way, and also rely much more on technology in documenting the information. So what happens many times now is that their software is interfaced with the firm's software. So at the same time that the technology is capturing information, it updates the software of the auditor. So what does that mean? It eliminates, at certain extent, the risk of human error when we transfer information from one system to the other. And that is, for example, a control there that from the audit side, in this case, it eliminates quite a bit of the risk. Now, there are other risks, obviously, the technological risks that are involved. Then you have quite a few risks in terms of access to license to fly a drone. Then you go to the skills, who can do that if we are realistic, and others. So it's an interesting technology, and it promises a lot going forward as well. The next one is the robotic process automation. Now, by its name, usually people, when they read that, they think about robots and the very high end of technology. Whereas when we're talking about process automation here, it's more of a simple tasks. So it converts simple, repetitive, manual tasks to automated, in an automated process. And that actually takes over quite a bit of the time of staff, for example, either in internal or external audit in this case, from dealing with repetitive areas. For example, it's just some stats. PwC estimates that 45% of the work activities can be automated. So it's quite interesting how much can be done by this. Now, I will refer to some other technologies going forward, but just to let you know, this is a simple one on its own, but it can become really interesting when it's combined with others. So it's the likes of AI and machine learning that we will gonna see in a few seconds. There are obviously some risks associated with this one as well. Because the process is quite straightforward, the main risks here are the access to the RPA software, and obviously IT change management here is quite key. So those need to be taken into consideration when that such technology will be adopted. Now, the next one, which probably is the most discussed and the most promises the most benefits at this time, is the control analytics and AI. You might heard it as data analytics. And it's a bit of umbrella of how people are defining this. But let's split it into three categories. We've got the descriptive analytics, which actually summarizes and visualizes what happens. So they describe, in other words. Then we've got the predictive analytics, which anticipates what will happen. So, for example, well, it will be it will be ironic that I'm going to use this example but the aviation industry, for example, before the coronavirus situation, used to use predictive analytics to, for example, prevent to generate cost savings by eliminating the risks at some extent of flight delays. So they were predicting using these predictive analytics and having less flight delays by knowing from the start where that was flagged. The prescriptive analytics, just by the name, it prescribes what to do. It explains and it gives recommendations. Now, just by the name, if you think about it, each one of those are use different levels of advanced technologies. So the descriptive analytics is basically what we used to do in the past, but using a much more powerful tools now to analyze bigger volume of data, which this is what we're dealing with in the times we live in now. The more predictive and prescriptive analytics are more likely to have more benefits when they are equipped with AI technology supporting them, such as machine learning. So, for example, in a risk assessment, an auditor can they are exploring at the moment, but where they are ending up at this stage is that, for example, for fraud identification in the risk assessment, because the AI has the ability to learn on its own, it uses that technology to flag the areas that are more susceptible to fraud risk from the beginning, which is quite an interesting area within this space of technologies. If you are interested more about these, we have two reports that refer to this one. One is called Machine Learning, More Science Than Fiction. I would advise you all to read that. It goes into depth about machine learning. And we have another report that I've dealt with is the Audit and Technology, which talks about more specifically about audit. And about this technology. Now, some examples here might be useful. Is the for example, the United Overseas Bank applied analytics for their compliance function to enhance its AML surveillance. Using these data analytics, it enabled the bank to identify those risks, and that may arise and trigger and any sanctions. Now, moving to the last one, but not least, of the technologies is blockchain. Now, blockchain, the best way for me to describe this one, and if we can please move to the next slide, maybe that will help a little bit of our participants to understand this one. The best way that I describe this one, especially when I talk to people with accounting background, is use the term distributed ledgers. And why do I prefer that? So we all know what a ledger is. So if we think about distributed, which in other words means shared, it talks about a ledger that is shared amongst the transacting parties. Now, if we think about it in a very simplistic ways, we've got a buyer and a seller. Now, what does that help? It helps because simultaneously it records the transaction in both parties without any intermediaries as well. So in a very simplistic way. Now, there are a lot of things that are going on with blockchain. There are the, for example, the permissionless blockchain, which means it's open to the public. So, for example, you see that in cryptocurrencies, you might see that those are permissionless. So anyone can access, can join the blockchain in that case. Is not restricted to the likes of permissioned blockchain, which is restricted to particular parties. So there are differences between the two, but usually you will see the permissionless in things like cryptocurrencies, and you will see the differences there. Now, the main thing is that there are a lot of drawbacks from the regulatory space in terms of the blockchain and its use, and quite a bit of challenges in terms of the ownership, and etc. I would say that blockchain didn't achieve yet what it can achieve, but from a personal point of view, I would say keep an eye on blockchain, because it won't be long since a big software will back up such technology and bring a lot of changes in the industry. Now, from a controls perspective, just think about having a transaction simultaneously. That eliminates quite a lot of the need of intermediaries. So think about industries like the insurance industry or like the banking industry, where you have so many intermediaries. It will definitely change a lot. And it did start, don't get me wrong, in some industries already, but it's still not deployed as it can. And the last technology we might not see on the screen, I want to mention that is quite interesting, just for the sake of our participants, is the natural language processing, the NLP. This technology is evolving quite quickly, and what this technology does is basically can take text, which could be from any form, either printed or PDF, or and convert it to a readable in a readable version, and structure it into digital data. That is a big change for the businesses, because it can help, especially those that are not following technology as much, to convert more easily to a more digital business in the future. So it also has the ability to read raw text So it helps with translations and things like that, or maybe a transcript and stuff like that. And it also helps auditors to deal with a lot of the non-financial information, the narrative side of things when they want to analyze them. If we can move to the next slide, please. Just a few words on the impact of internal and external audit. On the internal audit, of course, there are a lot of things going on here, but two things I would like to flag here is that businesses will need to consider the new businesses and internal auditors. Obviously, we need to consider the new and heightened risks and how they can provide assurance against those risks. So they have to consider that their AI function, IA function, the internal audit function, has the skill set to provide that assurance service when they deal with these advanced technologies. Secondly, is how can the IA function become more proponent to technology? So having a culture that actually promotes technology, so that it will in a way disrupt the traditional ways of testing controls and providing assurance. So just the focus in isolation with technology usually is not the way. It should be more embedded within the function of internal audit. A few words now on the external audit side of things. External auditors will be able to rely more on controls of the entity now. And the reason why is because those, as much as they become automated, they eliminate a lot of the manual risks that come when you have human elements there. It doesn't mean it will be 100%, but at least it will place a lot of more reliance on that, which means businesses will save costs. And the second bit is that obviously auditors, both external and internal, will need to have in-depth knowledge of these technologies in order to be able to provide their services going forward. Can we move to the next slide, please? So a few closing key messages that came out of the research. The first one is that obviously internal control concepts and principles do remain applicable. It doesn't mean we should forget what we do now and what is applicable now. They're still relevant and will continue to be applicable in the digital age. Actually, technology can help to make them more effective and efficient, also pervasive, rather than replacing them. So things like the COSOS integrated internal control framework, etc. Even basic automation can improve internal controls. As I mentioned, the robotic automation process could help a lot because it really eliminates a lot of the errors that derive from the standard processes when we have manual elements in there. So that is one thing that needs to be considered. Many organizations are already deploying or exploring emerging technologies. That is not a secret. We all know that they are. Some of them in a higher extent, depending on the industry that they operate in. But technology evolves so fast, so businesses really need to be aware of what's coming. You might not know everything, but at least have an awareness of what's coming and where we are. The next one is that in the digital age, the data governance and control culture does become more important. And that is because these are embedded in automated systems. So so beyond this, a level of professional skepticism will remain a challenge. So we shouldn't forget that. And last but not least, the interdisciplinary or specialized people within the teams will have a massive role here to play in order to deal with the more reinvented internal controls in the entire ecosystem of the accountancy profession. And by that, I'll hand over back to Hassan. I think that concludes my part. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Antonis, for a comprehensive reflection on this topic. And I'm sure all the attendees had a good time in, listening to what you had to share. I would also encourage all of you, to type your questions in the channel question panel box. We will be taking questions most definitely, but probably not all of them. All those questions which will be left unanswered at the end, we will refer them to the relevant people to whom they have been asked to. So therefore, also mention who you are asking this question to. And we will get back to you after the session with the answers of your questions. Now, I am very happy to introduce another very important speaker that we have, and he is, the expert of the topic from a local perspective, and by local I mean from the national perspective. I'm happy that Mr. Shehzad Ahmed Awan, who is Chief Audit Officer at SNGPL, and is also a member of Internal Audit Policy Board at Ministry of Finance. He has joined us. He's a member of the Accounting Standard Board at ICAP Pakistan. In the past, he has also served as president of Pakistan Institute of Public Finance Accountant. You all must be aware of this accounting body. And he has also been a technical advisor to the SAFA board as well. So again, I would say not only the national perspective, but also the regional and international perspective as well, which Mr. Shehzad will be contributing and building upon to what has already been shared by Antonis on this very important subject. So without any further ado, may I request Mr. Shehzad Ahmed Awan to please take over the stage and continue with the session. Thank you, sir.
Many thanks, Hassan, for welcome and my introduction. It was indeed a wonderful talk by Mr. Antonis, particularly on the topic regarding the new emerging technologies we may be facing in the days to come. I would also like to congratulate ICMA Pakistan and ACCA for today's webinar on a very significant topic. Gentlemen, while thinking about the topic, two questions were arising in my mind. The first one was, do we really need to reinvent internal controls in the emerging times? And the second was, if the existing controls are sufficient to meet the challenges or not. The answer was maybe or may not be, because at one point of time, the answer was yes, and at the other point of time, the answer was no. Although the present internal controls which we are having are sufficient to meet the challenges, but we need to further improve these internal controls to meet the challenges we are facing today. You would agree that digital tsunami is challenging status quo. That's why all organizations around the globe can't survive without changing or breaking their status quo situation right now. Likewise, remote working has pushed organizations to explore new opportunities to meet today's challenges, which requires, of course, to improve internal controls in the organization. Finally, automation, digitalization, innovation, and improved internal controls are the critical survival skills that business have to learn to live in competitive times. Gentlemen, when we talk about the internal controls, let me tell you, this is a great opportunity for all of us to reinvent, to redesign the internal controls for betterment of our organizations. Like if, for instance, if we talk about in terms of audit universe, you see every organization has already defined an audit universe, but in order to rule out any possibility that any area may not left uncontrolled or having a control of not that which is required should be there in the system. So at this point of time, we need to redesign our audit universe. We need to redesign our whole business process. Likewise, redefining risk-based audit programs to mitigate risks is another challenge, and this is need of the time that we need to redesign all audit programs. We need to rethink, revamp all the processes so that the risks which may be there in the systems may be removed, or any mitigation strategy can be designed for these risks as well. Strengthening the review process is, of course, of paramount importance. Without improving the review processes of our organizations, we can't improve our internal controls. That's why this needs to be strengthened with more force. At the end, of course, IIA has given a number of quality improvement assurance programs which are there, but again, we need to more focus on internal as well as external improvement programs so that we can list down the possible gaps in the internal controls, and these gaps can be plugged to avoid the possible challenges which our organizations are facing. At this point of time, I would also like to share that this is another good opportunity, because without having our resource HR skills, without having competent human resources and a good digital environment, we can't meet all these challenges, even though if we have good internal controls as well. So basically, these are the people who are going to implement and give assurance regarding the implementation of the internal controls. That's why I would focus that the follow of code of ethics and code of conducts for HR is very important. So this is high time we need to get our HR resources well acquainted with all the code of ethics and code of conduct. Here I would also suggest that the persons, the guys who are violating the code of ethics, code of conducts, because these are very important for organizations, there should be another control for these violators as well. There should be certain disciplinary processes so that these guys can be reprimanded to follow the code of ethics and conducts designed by the organizations. Another very big problem which we are facing because of this digitalization, particularly when we are supposed to work from home, away from the offices, that is our privacy of data is a very big challenge in Pakistan, of course, in the globe as well. So to meet this challenge, definitely we are focusing to implement various IT frameworks to cater the situation, like information security management system is there, cyber security frameworks are there. We can apply corporate for digital financial transactions. And likewise, if we talk in terms of internal auditing, we need to design our systems in such a way that every edit in the data must have a complete audit trail so that we can see what went wrong with that data and who was responsible for that wrong. So a complete audit trail is very much required so that this data privacy can't be compromised. Now, two more things which I would like to tell. What we are locally doing to meet all these challenges. Gentlemen, not only at corporate level, but I'm happy to share that Government of Pakistan is also fully on it, and they have taken a number of legislative steps in this matter. But I will share just one of them, which is more particular to the internal audit and internal controls. That is, the federal government has promulgated Public Finance Management Act 2019. And in pursuance of this act, an internal audit policy board has been constituted, and this board is responsible for overall policy making for setting standard, and more particularly, they will be focusing on the internal controls of whole of the public sector organization in the Pakistan. And I believe by virtue of this, these arrangements and these laws, definitely transparency improvement will be improved in the days come, inshallah. No, my other co-partner, Antonis, of course, has given a detailed deliberations on the technologies. But one thing which I believe we need to focus is, I mean, we are supposed to deploy only those technologies which are, of course, cost effective as well. I mean, if these are not cost effective, then it is not meaningful for organization. Here in Pakistan and in number of organizations, we have introduced these ideas, and by virtue of these ideas, we are witnessing that there is, I mean, a massive improvement in organizations. And few of the frameworks which I would love to share, and these are very close to my heart as well, because these are almost have no cost, very low cost components. One of them is RASI framework. I would suggest every corporate organization should implement RASI framework to timeline every business activity. And by virtue of this RASI framework, responsibility assignment matrix would be prepared for every activity and for every individual. And this would definitely clarify responsibility and ensure that every activity is assigned with timelines and accountability. And by virtue of this, definitely the project director, the project manager, the senior management would be in a position to check whether all timelines are being met, and every person who is responsible for every transaction, he is doing his job on time or not. So this RASI framework is worth implementing in the organizations, and I would strongly suggest that we should look into it and see the benefits of this framework as well. Another is ambition model. Again, I love this model. This is a very simple model. This model works with block building chain approach. I mean, if first we need to complete first step, then it comes second, then it comes third, and so we can achieve maximum out of it when we will be at the fifth chain point of the ladder. This model is excellent tool for self-reflection and internal validation of compliances with internal controls and standards. So why I am advocating these two standards is, I mean, there is no cost involved, very low cost involved, and we can generalize the, I mean, the movement of every transaction of our organization in terms of the internal controls. So at the end, I would suggest that businesses are required to design controls. Designing is of course important, but foremost is the proper regular follow-up and monitoring of these internal controls. I mean, if ever I have internal controls, but these controls are not effective, are not being properly monitored by the internal auditors, then there is no use for having these controls. So particularly, we need to focus on governance, risk management, and controls. And I believe having all these controls in place, our organizations would be compatible to meet all the challenges we are facing these days. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shahzad Ahmed, for sharing a very rigorous and comprehensive national view on where we are, what the opportunities really are going forward. There have been a couple of comments and questions that we have received in between. We definitely will be sending this presentation to all of the attendees who have attended today's session. The report and the key highlights are already part of this particular resource section, so you can access it from there. And as for the presentation is concerned, we definitely will be sending you this once we come back after the long weekend in Pakistan. Uh, yes, most definitely, Mr. Hassan Soleh very rightly said, drones could definitely be very helpful in the stock take. Uh, you know, so if you have any other question, please do type it in the panel, because in the interest of time, it would be difficult for us to allow the verbal option to each and every individual. I can see a couple of hands raised. However, I would request you, if you could write your question in the question panel, and I will direct it to the relevant speaker. Yes, Mr. Nabil Abbas, thank you for your request, definitely we will be sending the presentation to all of the attendees. Heather Bilal, Atif Mahmood, these gentlemen have raised their hands. I hope they want to ask the question. However, as I've said, it would not be possible for us to give the opportunity of asking a verbal question to everyone who has raised hand. So if you could kindly, Heather Bilal and Atif Mahmood, if you could type your questions for the panelist, and I would be. Thank you, Heather Bilal, for your comment. It was very beneficial. And would you please advise or guide me how to register? How to register for what? For the session. You already have registered. The recording of this session will be available after some time tomorrow, and you just have to go to the same registration link, type in your details, and you will be directed to the recording of this session. For future webinars, definitely please keep a lookout on the email inbox. We will be sending you the emails of all these webinars. Every month we will be having one such event where we will be inviting a speaker from ACCS Professional Insight team, and at the same time we will be inviting a speaker from the national level spectrum as well, so that you have a very good combination of global as well as national perspective as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Shahid Iqbal, for your comments. Can you please elaborate further on the RACI framework, its implementation, and the cost involved? So, if I may request Shehzad Saab, and he could shed some more light on this important framework that you have talked about. Shahid Iqbal has asked this question. Mr. Shehzad, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I am hearing you. Thank you, Shahid, for asking this question. Let me tell you in few words. RASI basically is a framework, and you can download it from your website. It's free of cost. There is no charges for this. And the beauty of RASI is that every activity of your business can be mapped on this model, on this framework. Once you map your all activities on this map, on this RASI framework, then you need to monitor, I mean, what was the timeline set by your manager for doing X activity, what was the timeline set for Y activities, and what was the outcome, whether was that achieved on time or not. If not, what were the reasons, so what was the root cause for not achieving these results. I mean, this is how we can improve our system, internal controls, and ultimately the goals of the organization. Free, there is no cost involved in this. Thank you. Yes, it's all from my side.
Okay, I would like to inform the audience that Hassan has been disconnected and we would resume in 2 minutes.
Am I audible now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. So apologies. I thought there was this held up for a moment. So what I was referring to is that uh, Abu Bakr Arif have shared a question. So if I may request you to let me know whom you want me to refer this question to. Uh, Before I do that, so the question is, what are the key steps that we can use for our cybersecurity, as hacking is a very major risk associated to online data? Please quote examples. So, Antonis, if I may request you to pick this question and answer, uh, what we can use for the cybersecurity, especially these days when phishing email campaigns and different stuff is very much in vogue.
So thank you for the question. That's a really interesting question. I don't know if you know, there is a say that it is those companies that were hacked and those that are about to be hacked. So it is an issue that everyone should be deal with cybersecurity. So I would say the first step is awareness within the organization, and that could be through internal training and webinars to make at least starting from the employees of a business, and creating a culture of understanding the key ways that these are happening. So if we take, for example, the emails that we receive now, especially within the COVID era that we live in now, you might want to ensure that, for example, that comes from a legit source by looking at the email address, looking at signs on the email, etc. But I would start by training internally. That is the first thing to equip a business. And then when we go to more process steps, it's basically it really depends on the organization and the industry where they will start, whether they have the internal resources or whether they will outsource that. So I hope that answers the question at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonis. Then we have another question, and it's from Heather Bilal. Does redesigning internal control means we are going to see increased operational cost for the businesses? So if I may request Mr. Shahzad to respond to this question from Heather Bilal. Uh,
So, thank you for asking a wonderful question. I believe there is no much cost involved in redesigning the internal controls because this is a job of your internal audit team. I mean, they are the guys who are expert and they can redesign their internal controls at their own. I mean, if they need some help, definitely they can get training from experts, but there is no cost involved. For instance, if you have internal control process is there, a design is there, and there are certain changes, dynamics are changed, then you need to change your program. Otherwise, if you keep on continuing with the old control framework, then definitely you will not be able to identify the lapses, the policy gaps, which may occur if you are not able to redesign your audit program. I would rather say this is a continuous process. Before any, we must first need to check whether my audit program, my controls are accurate. If accurate means are up to the mark. If these are not up to the mark, then definitely I need to first review, revisit, and change my audit programs and controls. There is no cost involved again. Thank you.
all right. Thank you so much, Mr. Shahzad. And Tonis, if I may refer you another important question from Mr. Khizr, and he says that from external audit perspective, don't you think the new technologies would increase the detection risk to an unacceptable level if there are massive implications on the information system, especially for the first year audits when we have very limited knowledge of the business?
Thank you for the question. That's an interesting question. So the auditors are following very closely, usually, the big firms, at least the big four firms and some of the mid-tier firms are following very closely what's going on with the technologies. So I would be very surprised. They're not going to deal with them in the first time when they will deal with the client. So some of them are offering that service themselves as from their advisory disciplines. And I would be very surprised if you see a big change in the first time they're going to use them. But there are many things going on with the advanced technologies and external audit, and I'll refer to one of the main things that people, I know it's out of this question, but it might be of interest to our participants. Many question whether the standards are ready for these advanced technologies. And from the IAASP's side, be assured that they are looking at what's going on in as they go through the process. Obviously, the projects over there are big projects. They take a good time to end up into the final product, whether that is a revised standard or guidance. But it's an important area. But I would say that one of the fundamental things to note here is that the standards are principles-based, and that allows auditors to actually apply the standards in those cases. The most important thing that is being discussed, and sometimes we hear practitioners referring to, is the language sometimes in the standard is outdated, and that is because they were written at the time where these technologies were not in existence. And if you look at the new standards that are being revised now, so for example, the ISA 315, identifying and assessing risk of material misstatements, you will see that it does refer to some of these technologies within the standard. I hope that addressed the question a bit.
Thank you, Antonis. And then now the last question from Zain Shahid, and it is directed for you, Mr. Shehzad. The question is that, do you expect reluctance to change while these emerging technologies are going to implement in Pakistani organizations?
Okay, it's really, hard question to answer, because at one point of time, the answer is yes, and the other is, of course, no. But I believe we should be ready to implement all these changes, all these challenges in our internal controls and processes, so that we can meet the challenges which we are facing today. You see, everything is being changed these days. If we look at the IFRSs, once we used to, list and teach leases, no, lease concept is totally changed. Revenue recognition policies has all together been changed. So when everything has been changed, then definitely we are supposed to adjust with all these changes and try to accommodate and try to incorporate these changes in our systems and internal controls, so that we can be a vibrant and sustainable organizations. Thank you.
And also, Shehzad Sahab, if I can also refer you a related question in the interest of time as well, that what is the relevance of this particular topic in the local context? So do you see at a national level, Pakistani organizations, whether from the public sector or private sector, are implementing this technology, and we are not that far away that, if these technologies are being implemented today in the Western world, they are going to be implemented in Pakistan, say in 25 years? Or do you think the gap has now been reduced?
Thank you for this question. Of course, we are fully geared up to meet all these challenges, and by the grace of Allah Almighty, our public sector as well as corporate sector organizations are fully prepared to incorporate all these challenges in their internal control programs. And yes, of course, the one element of cost always is being considered, because when we have a cost benefit analysis, at times it seems these new emerging technologies are not that cost effective. So that's why this is one of the impediment which we may face. Otherwise, we are fully equipped in Pakistan. Government of Pakistan is fully supporting the organizations to meet all these challenges, and the boards of the organization particularly the corporate sector, they are fully conversant with the challenges, and they are allowing budgets to the organizations to buy all these new technologies and implement in the businesses, because without having all these new technologies, definitely we may not be able to compete the world. So that's why I hope and inshallah we will, if there is gap, we will fill this gap in the days to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahzad Sahab. Antonis, one last quick question because we don't have any more. So I would like to, also close this before we go for our closing remarks. Could you please define more on the difference between predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. That is that is quite an interesting one. So if we think about the was the question predictive and prescriptive? Sorry, just to.
Yes, so the difference between predictive analytic and prescriptive analytic.
Yeah. So when we talk about predictive analytics, we talk about using algorithms that will try to anticipate, if you want, what will happen. So it's not just using though the patterns from the past, it's also using them to create a prediction. But because we are talking about, if we talk about data analytics in isolation, then it's in a more powerful way than it was done in the past. Let's say using tools like we all know, like Excel or something. We can all sort of try to forecast something. However, if that is combined with the AI technology, which uses, it learns on its own. So it learns from the data that are feed in to the AI. And let's not forget that the new technologies are now looking at unstructured data as well. What do we mean by that? Things like social media and information that we don't normally tend to look at, those are taken into account, so that prediction becomes a little bit more reliable. If that will work, it remains to be seen, but there are a lot of promises there. Now the prescriptive analytic takes it to a step further. It provides recommendations on what to do. Because it learned on its own, it provides recommendation what to do to, let's say, make a process more efficient, or ensure that you address the risks as you should. So the example that I used before on the predictive was, for example, the aviation industry, predicting their preventing flight delays as much as they can. Now, the recommendations is how can they do their process? How can they redesign it to make sure that they avoid those flight delays? I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Antonis. Thank you so much, Mr. Shahzad Ahmedawan. This was very comprehensive. I hope all the participants had a very good time listening to your expert views. Now, without any further ado, may I request Mr. Amir Ijaz Khan, the Executive Director at ICMA Pakistan and himself a fellow member of Cost and Management Accountant Pakistan, to share his perspective while delivering the closing remarks on this topic, and at the same time on the partnership between ACCA and ICMA Pakistan. Thank you very much, sir. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Hassan. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. I am, first of all, thankful to my distinguished panel of speakers, which we have opted for today. And prior to that, I'm thankful to ACCA for shaking hands with us for the deliverance of this very significant topic and very appropriate one. Because nowadays, people are surprised that what would be the future of the accountancy in a couple of decades, or let's say after 5 years. There are certain ambiguities in their mind, would there be any professional accountants or the machine learning AI will overcome all these assignments which are being done nowadays by the professional accountants? Or and there are certain transformations, just like we are looking forward for the CFOs to serve as the chief strategy officer, the other chief value officer. So things need to be very clear. And our today's distinguished panel was exclusive in that sense that Mr. Antonis took over the good grasp of the topic and give the insights of the topic to the participants, whereas Mr. Awan, from the other perspective, gave us the whole national scenario inculcated with the international drive and international best practices. He referred us certain frameworks, the techniques which we can easily adopt it for our organizations, and as a professional, we can get our job done in a minimum time with much more efficiency and effectiveness. So thank you very much for both of you guys to joining us. And next is the participants. Obviously, I was watching overwhelming response that at one stage we were having 200 plus participants on only this medium, and then we are broadcasting the same on the Facebook of the both premier institutes. And I think that the reach has must been crossed 4-digit, 1000 plus must have seen this full of learning session. Keeping it with the time that we need to conclude it by 6:30. Now, I request your good self that please pardon with us that we have overrun 15 minutes. Thank you very much for your patience. And last but not the least, to my all Muslim fellows who are participating and joining us from Pakistan, Jashn Eid Miladul Nabi to all of you. Thank you very much, Hassan, for giving me this opportunity. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Amir Saab, for such a lovely closing and wrapping it up. Certainly, it's been a great reach. And may I once again, on behalf of ACCA and ICMA Pakistan, thank both the speakers, the distinguished speakers, for their time, for sharing their much thoughtful insights from a national as well as global perspective. And I also would like to thank all the participants who've taken time out, attended this session, and I hope it was knowledge sharing for them. We will be sending you the certificates for the CPD, through email, and these will be digital certificates. And definitely, you will also be able to hear the recording of this session by tomorrow. What you need to do is that you simply have to go to the same link, just input your details, and you will be directed to the recording. Once again, thank you very much, all of you. Take care. Have a good long weekend in Pakistan, and speak soon. Allah Hafiz. Goodbye.
Thank you all. Thank you.